Hey everyone, wanted to make a video to go over exam 1. You'll see a lot of resources in ELC to help out with that. But what I want to do today is I want to run through the exam 1 Excel practice as well as the Hermes review. You can find these files in ELC. So we have a couple questions here we're going to be answering. Questions have multiple parts. Let's go ahead and get started with it. I'm going to go ahead and copy these questions, just so I don't have to keep flipping back and forth. You don't have to do this, but if that's something you want to do, you certainly can. So we're going to be adding a column here called down payment. Should also probably mention, feel free to slow down the video, feel free to pause it, anything you need to do. So we added the down payment column. It says the lawn doctors have trouble collecting from their clients, and they're going to collect 25% of the contract amount as a down payment. None of the other subcontractors require down payment. Use an if statement to construct the down payment. So in other words, what we're doing is we're setting up an if statement where we're testing to see whether the subcontractor for each of these equals lawn doctors. That's going to be our if statement for the logical test. If it is lawn doctors, then what we're going to do is we're going to take the contract amount times 0.25. If it's not lawn doctors, we're not going to put anything there. That is going to be our if statement. Now we can take this, go ahead and copy this down, and you'll see that only for lawn doctors, we have had a down payment that's 25%. Next, we're told to add a column labeled remainder. It's going to display the final amount to be collected. So for the remainder, what we're doing, we're taking the contractor amount minus the down payment. So that's going to give me an error. So I'm going to go back to this, and I'm just going to say 0 for the value of false. Now when I copy this down, I can take the contract amount minus the down payment. And when I do that, that is going to give me the amount the customer still has remaining to pay. So, next we are told find the average contract amount for the acreage service category transaction performed by the turf team. To do that, I'm going to use the average ifs function. We are told to find the average contract amount. So I'm going to select from cell I5 down here to I75. We're told to do this for the service category of acreage. So I'm going to have my criteria range 1 be golf 5 through golf 75. The criteria 1, inside of quotes, I'm going to type acreage. And we're told that it has to be performed by the turf team. So the subcontractor that contains whether or not it's performed by the turf team. Whoops, went a little bit too far there. It's going to be found inside of F5 through F75. And inside of quotation marks, we're going to type the turf team. That gives me $3,533.79. Next, we're told convert this range to a table. So to do that, I'm simply going to take all of these cells here, select them. That's going to be from alpha 5 to kilo 75. I'm going to hit Control if you're on Windows, or Command. You're going to hold that down on a Mac, and then T. I'm going to select the option my table has headers, hit OK. Now this is formatted as a table. Now we're told create a conditional formatting rule that highlights the bottom 10% of all contract amounts with light red fill and dark red text. So we're going to go to the contract amounts. I'm going to go ahead and select all of these. Go to the Home tab, go to conditional formatting. Just to make sure I have this right, the bottom 10% with light red fill with dark red text. So we do that. That means we should have about 7 or 8 of those highlighted in red because we have roughly 70, because it's 5 through 75, that's about 70. So 10% of those should be about 7. That looks good to me. Now we're told to filter out all the contract amounts above 5,000, sort the table by contract amount. We can do that pretty easily. Come over here, we can apply the filter. We can do greater than 5,000. So that's going to be where we have it showing just the ones that are greater than 5,000. That's really the opposite of what we want. So instead of doing greater than 5,000, let's do less than 5,000. If you're on a Mac, that's going to auto-apply. Okay, so we've done that. Filtered out everything larger than 5,000. Now all we have to do is go to Sort and Filter. Do a custom sort. We'll go ahead and sort by contract amount. And we are told to sort that contract amount. I forgot to see. It doesn't say largest to smallest or smallest to largest. So we will go ahead and sort the contract amount smallest to largest. So you can see that in fact we did highlight the bottom 10% like we said. We don't have anything larger than 5,000 in the table, and we've gone ahead and sorted everything. So we should be good to go there. Let's go ahead and copy the next set of questions. So go ahead and paste these somewhere where I can see them. I don't like that paste. Let me do that again. I'm going to paste values just so it's a little bit easier for me to read these. First question says use an if statement to determine the cost to customer for each item in the list, given the sales price, tax rate, and exemption. So basically what we have here is we have a sale price, we have the tax rate given over here, and some of the items are exempt. So I'm going to set up an if statement like it says. I'm going to say if my value instead of Bravo 3 equals non-exempt. In other words, if the item is not exempt from taxation, the value, if that's true, would be taking my sale price times 1 plus my tax rate. Okay, to make sure that your tax rate, because that is not something you want to increment, make sure to make that an absolute reference. If it does not equal non-exempt, then it means it is exempt from tax, which means the value of false would just be the sale price of the item. Now I can take this equation, copy that down, and that should fill that out for each of the items. We'll make sure, look at an exempt item, we can see that it's just charging the sale price. That's correct. We can also see here the items that are being charged taxation. It looks like they are properly, so that's good to see. So that's question A. Question B says use a cell reference to point that points to the respective cells on the cost sheet to populate the cost to customer. So in other words, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find the cost to customer for each of these items. To do that, I'm going to use a VLOOKUP. I'm going to look up the item name, which is going to be found in, for the first item, alpha 18. I will be looking for that. Let's do a table range from alpha 2 to hotel 11, because I'm going to copy this down. Let's make that entire range an absolute reference. And now I need to do the fun part, which is to count the columns. So I have A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4, E is 5, F is 6, G is 7, H is 8. I want an exact match, so I'm going to say false there. Now I can take this equation, go ahead and copy it down. Looks like I copied it just a bit too far, not a big deal. Now it says to go ahead and populate the cost per item and the total for all of the items. So for that, the item cost, we're going to take the cost to the customer per unit for each item, multiply it by the quantity. Go ahead and copy that for these items. Now for the total item cost, we're just going to take a sum, and we're going to be ranging from delta 18 to delta 22. In other words, all 5 of these items. We're going to add up the items cost. So, part D says if the total cost exceeds $2,500, the shipping cost is 6% of the total item cost. If it's less than $2,500, shipping cost is 9%. Determine the shipping cost using an if statement. Seems simple enough. We're going to set up an if statement. We're looking at this total item cost here in delta 23. And we're seeing, is this larger than 2,500? If it is larger than 2,500, we're told that the shipping cost is going to be total item cost times 0.06. If it's not larger than 2,500, we're told it's going to be the total item cost times 0.09. And that information is given to us in the problem. Now we're told to determine the total cost of the order. Total cost of the order is going to be the item cost plus the shipping cost for a total of $9,053.14. Okay, so finally, we're on to F. It says on the invoice, use a VLOOKUP to enter the vendor name. So we're going to use a VLOOKUP here. We're looking up the vendor code that's found in Bravo 15. We're going to be looking for that in, let's have our table array be from Juliet 15 to Kilo 20. And we'll return the second column of that, and we'll get an exact match. Tells us vendor code 3 is Amazon.com. We go to vendor code 3, it is in fact Amazon.com. Part G says, on the invoice, use the lookup table and an XLOOKUP to enter the purchase type. So we're going to use an XLOOKUP function here. We're trying to find the purchase type code on this one. We're going to be looking for that over here where we have the purchase type code. It's going to be from Lima 15 to Lima 18. We want to return the corresponding purchase type name. It's going to be found in the cells Mike 15 to Mike 17. We'll go ahead and put that in. Whoops, look like we have a slight error here. Let's see what that is. Okay, so I did Lima 15 to Lima 18 and Mike 15 to Mike 17. Our rows have to match. So I just need to change that 17 on Mike to 18. When I put that in, that gives me a one-time order for item number 1. And that is, in fact, correct. So like I say, feel free to pause or slow down any of that as needed. I'm going to go ahead and jump over and knock out the Hermes review. First question here says, what is the average price of a bag in the data set? Well, to answer that, let's use the average function. We have prices in the I as in India column. That is going to give us 59,637. Second question says, how many crocodile bags are in the data set? I don't know, but I know how to find that out. And that's going to be to use the COUNTIFs function. So we're going to go over here to look for crocodile bags. We're going to use the material column to figure that out. And the criteria is going to be crocodile asterisk. Now the asterisk comes into play there because I want to ignore what comes after the word crocodile. Otherwise, if I just did crocodile, I'd get 0. Next question says, what is the average price of a bicolor bag? So to solve that, we'll use the average ifs function. We're trying to find the average price, so the average range is going to be found in the price column, and I as in India. Now we're trying to figure out whether the bag is bicolor or not. Whether or not the bag is bicolor, it's actually going to be found in the color column. Usually we use color category here, but we'll use the color column to tell whether the bag is bicolor. So the criteria 1, in other words, the only criteria here, going to be the word bicolor. Put that into quotes. Gives you $66,721.56. Now we're told for number 4 to add a column that classifies bags as small if less than 30 centimeters and big otherwise. I'm going to call this relative size. We're just setting up an if statement to do this. We're looking at the size of each bag, so I'm going to start with if delta 2 is less than 30. We're told that this is going to be a small bag. If it's smaller than 30 centimeters, it's small. Otherwise, we're calling it large. So the value of false is going to be large. Take this equation, go ahead and copy it down. Let's verify that it worked. So we have 125 centimeter item is small. A lot of large bags here. Definitely some small ones too, though. So what is the average hammer price of a brown Birkin? So if you don't know, these are bags sold at auction, so the prices are just the hammer price. All we have to do to figure this out is use the average ifs function, trying to find the average hammer price, which is just the price. We have two criteria. First, the bag must be brown. Whether the bag is brown is going to be found in the color category column. That's going to be my criteria range 1. Criteria 1 instead of quotes is going to be the word brown. Second criteria is that the bag is Birkin. Whether or not the bag is Birkin is going to be found in the shape column. It's going to be found in the C as in Charlie column specifically. So we're going to go ahead and use that entire shape column there. And then the criteria is going to be the word Birkin for criteria 2. Looks like everything I need. Gives me $39,553.24. Next question says, what is the average price of a not Himalayan bag? This is where things get just a little bit trickier. Okay, so we have a couple different ways we could solve this. Okay, so I think the simplest way is to set up an average ifs function, taking the average price. And if we take a look here very carefully, we'll see that both the color and the color categories, some of them are Hima. I think I'm saying that right. So we can pick either one that we're using for the criteria range. I'm going to pick the F as in Foxtrot column. And our criteria instead of quotes, we're going to say does not equal Hima. Okay, so that's one way we could solve that. We haven't really covered does not equal yet, but it's just going to be the less than, greater than sign, exactly like I have it here. So if I put that in, I'm going to get $51,332. Now, if I didn't want to solve it that way, I could add in another column here. And what I could do is I could say Hima or not. And I could set up an if statement. So my logical test, I'll look at the color and I'll say, does this equal the word Hima? If it does, we're going to classify the bag as Hima. If it doesn't, the value of false, we're going to classify the bag as not. So I can take this, go ahead and copy it down. And alternatively, I can come over here, take the average ifs, still looking at the average price, only now we're going to look at bags that are not Hima. And you'll see that even though I solved that two different ways, I got the same answer. So you get to pick which way works best for you. Now, having said that, those are not the only two ways we could solve it. There's many other ways as well, but those are the two that I think will be fastest on an exam. Our question number 8 says, add a column classifies bags as neutral if black or brown and colorful otherwise. Let's go ahead and add in another column here. Seems to be the theme right now. I'm going to call this relative color. So basically for this, I think the easiest way to do this is with a nested if statement. So we're saying if it's black, then we're classifying the bag as neutral. Otherwise, I'm going to test to see whether the bag equals brown. I'm going to classify brown bags as neutral as well. And if it's neither black nor brown, my second value of false here is going to be colorful. That's given to us in the problem. Go ahead and close both those if statements. Take this, go ahead and copy it down. So I've got a lot of black and brown bags at the beginning, a lot of neutral. Then I've got a lot of non-black and brown bags. They're colorful. Looks like it did the trick to me. Brings us to the next question, was what is the average price of a neutral bag? I'm going to answer that using average ifs, taking the average price, only looking at neutral bags, okay? Now you might notice that I used a little bit of a shortcut there. Whoops. I used a little bit of a shortcut to not have to type the word neutral, and I just used the first cell that I saw that only had the word neutral in it. That works totally fine. If you don't believe me, you can just type the word neutral inside of quotes. You'll see I get the exact same answer. I'm all about shortcuts. So, next question says, add a column, calculates the total cost to customer, including sales tax, where sales tax is 8%. Let's go ahead and knock this out. So we're calling this total cost to customer. It's given to us in the problem. All we're doing to calculate this is we're taking the price, we're multiplying it by 1 plus, and then I'm going to have an absolute reference to cell Oscar 18. If you didn't want to have an absolute reference there, you could just type in 8%. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Take this equation, copy it down, make sure that everything looks larger than the previous values, and it looks like they are. Some of them, like these down here, are actually too large to fit, so I can just expand the column, and then I can see the values there. So that's certainly a trick if you ever see a lot of hashtag or pound signs. So I want to buy a big, neutral colored Birkin, and by big it means large. What is the average cost to customer for such bags? So to answer that, we can use the average ifs function. We're going to be using the total cost to customer column for the average range, because we're not trying to find the average price, but the average price for the customer, including sales tax. The order that I put these criteria in doesn't matter as long as I match up the criteria range with their respective criteria. I'll just go in the order I'm given. So the first criteria is going to be big, or in other words, large. Whether or not the bag is large, it's going to be found in the J as in Juliet column. Okay, so we're going to use the word large there. And again, that's just a small typo in the worksheet. It should say large instead of big. Second criteria is that it's neutral colored. Well, for the criteria range that goes with neutral, it's going to be found in the L as in Lima column. And the criteria, we're going to use neutral. Third thing is that it's a Birkin bag. Whether or not it's a Birkin bag is going to be found in the C as in Charlie column. So the criteria range 3 is going to be C:C. Criteria 3, we're going to type the word Birkin. Gives us, $45,177.03. So the next question adds on one more criteria. It says, what if we only evaluate bags in the previous question sold in 2019 or later? Rather than retype all that, I'm going to be a bit lazy, copy it, and just add in that final condition. So for my criteria 4, it's going to be the bag was sold on or after the first day of 2019. It's going to be found in my date column. The criteria instead of quotes, we're going to say greater than, equal to 1/1/2019. So I'm going to put that in. And that's actually going to yield a smaller result than previously. So if I were to change this, and it's not what the question asked, but just for fun, if I change this to sold before the first day of 2019, see the number actually goes up a little bit, which is interesting. Okay, but that's not what we're asked. We're asked to find what the average cost to customer for a big neutral colored Birkin is if we're only looking at bags sold on or after the first day of 2019. So that is how you would solve that. Certainly do hope that was helpful. Feel free to pause or slow down the video as needed. Otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of your day.